Hey guys, I'm back for another video. This one is actually going to be the one about my life. Um, I feel it's one that everyone deserves to hear. It's actually one that I wrote down, so a lot of it I'm going to be reading. But so if you see me glancing this way, it's because I'm reading or looking at where I might be at on the page. But I started actually typing it out, and I realized, how long it took somebody to read this. I had a couple people proofread it, um, and it took them like over an hour to read it, and I was just like, holy crap. And I thought about people's busy lives and stuff, and I want it to get out there. So if I want it to get out there, I'm gonna have to do something I'm not quite comfortable with, which is videos. So this is like a whole new world to me, so y'all bear with me. Hopefully I get better at it. If I don't, I'm sorry. But let me see. My main reason for doing this is because I know this could just help so many people. I just want to go ahead and give everyone a heads up. There is sexual abuse in this. I'm not holding back on it. Things will be said the way that they are, and if you're underage, unless you're actually going through some of this shit, don't watch these videos. If this is something that I know a lot of people said it puts them in bad moods, or people just doesn't like, they don't like to hear stuff like that. you know, they like to pretend that the world is all great and they're in this bubble, but there is bad stuff that happens. And for those people that this bad stuff happened to, they need to know that there is a way to break free from it. So these are, with that in, that is my intention in sharing my story, to help other people break free. And hopefully, like, I'll break free from some more stuff, like, um, whenever I was in therapy and stuff, I was told, you need to share, and you never need to stop sharing. You could just help thousands and thousands of people. But the older I got and out in the real world, it was just like, no, like, we don't want to hear your sad soppy story about how your dad just tortured you. Like, I don't want to think about stuff like that. So this is me kind of getting over, like, the shutdown, I guess, that I had whenever I was younger. So, but whenever I was younger, my mom would tell me my dad was coming home, and I would get all excited. And then the man that I began to hate at a very young age would appear, and I would tell her, "That's not my real dad." I'm not sure if I didn't refer to him as my dad because he told me he wasn't, that I was another man's child, or if it was because I didn't want him to be. But one day I was talking to my mom about my real dad, and she asked me, she was like, "Well, what does he look like?" And granted, I'm probably around 3 years old. And you're thinking, oh, well, how do you remember back that far? Well, my life was very traumatizing, and the brain does a really good job at remembering trauma. So I can remember my mom pregnant with my brother. That was a huge change. Like, her belly got huge, and I was like, "What is wrong with your belly? Like, why is it so big?" And my brother is 2 years younger than me, so I would have been one and a half, two, maybe. So probably two. So I have a very good memory of my childhood. What I don't have a good memory of is something that happened yesterday, something that happened a week ago. Different ways I would have affected somebody a week ago. But stuff like this, it just like really ingrained in my brain for some reason. But she had asked me, what does he look like? And I said, he looks like love. And she said, well, what does love look like? And I said, like happiness and like peace. And she said, well, where do you see your dad? And I said, I see him in my dreams. And I used to have these just crazy dreams. And this real dad would be in my dreams. And he would tell me, like, hey, this is about to happen and this is what you're going to have to do. Or this is going to happen, or I'm sending this to help you, and I'll go through some of that with you. But it was just like my dreams, they would freak my dad out. He swore I was a witch. He swore that I was like possessed by the devil or something. My mom, she would just be like, oh my God, don't tell me about another dream. Like, she would get scared because a lot of them were like pretty rough. I told her she was going to prison before she went to prison. I told her my dad was going to prison before he went to prison. So it's just like, sometimes she just didn't want to know my dreams, I guess. She didn't want that heads up. Me, on the other hand, I've always wanted that heads up, and I don't know if it's because I was given it at such a young age. But my mom was very codependent. My dad was very abusive. Um, the sexual acts that me and my brother witnessed. I have a younger brother. Um, he made us perform on him and others, to whoever he thought, whatever he could get out of them. Due to our participation, we felt guilty too. We were forced to eat outside a lot. My mom would work and he wouldn't, so he would be in charge of watching us. So we would basically scavenge. We would eat blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, wild strawberries. Um, Whatever was ripe in the garden, we would eat raw potatoes, raw carrots, just wash them off with a garden hose. A lot of the times, like, he would invite people over and we would be locked out of the house for hours. So being outside, I mean, you're thinking, oh God, that's terrible. But being outside was great. Being away from him was great. If it was raining or if it was just one of those days where he wanted us inside with him all day, then it was hell on earth. That was whenever it was bad. That was whenever we would get duct taped to a table leg or a chair leg and not be able to move and have our mouths covered for hours. So it was a good thing being stuck outside. The only problem was is that because we were children, we didn't properly wash stuff. Um, I know several times I had issues with getting worms in my stomach, and it was because our the food we were eating wasn't getting cleaned off. So, oops, I went way too far. Whenever we would get duct tape to the tables and the chair legs and sometimes our bedposts, we would be left there for so long that we would have to use the bathroom on ourselves. And then we were screamed at and beaten and made to clean it up. So, until I was around the age of 7, I had, I guess, what you could consider a really bad diaper rash. And it was basically just being left to use the bathroom on myself. And my brother the same way. When I was around the age of 4, I had already changed several of my brother's diapers because my dad wouldn't touch them. Like, if he pooped or whatever, like, he wouldn't mess with it. He would just leave him in it all day long. My mom told me to stop changing his diapers, that I needed to let my dad know when he was dirty. Because one incident, I got poop all over both of us and the couch. He just wouldn't stop squirming. It made it really hard for me to try to change his diaper. So I told my dad that, my mom had said, hey, that he needed to come change his diaper, and he got very mad. And he took the diaper and he shoved it in my brother's face. And not just to his face, he shoved it in his face. And that was his method of potty training. He made him eat his own poop. And told him if he ever shit on another diaper again, that he would eat it too, diaper and all. So my brother was 2, and he promised my dad that he would never pee or poop in another diaper again. And I don't remember him doing so. Um, when visiting my grandmother, she would ask me about the rash, and she would, for some reason, feel the need to go to the restroom with me. And she would ask me from time to time, like, hey, what is your dad doing to you? She kind of suspected some sexual activity, but nobody was talking. I don't feel like the rash was from sexual and like anything sexual that he exposed us to. I feel like it was being left for so long, being tied or duct taped or whatever it was, and not being able to get up to go to the restroom, not being able to get up or even move, not being able to talk because we had duct tape around or over our mouths, so we couldn't even let him know that we had to use the bathroom. Um, I never told her the reason for the rash because I didn't want to tell her that I had been using the bathroom on myself. I was embarrassed. And looking at it as an adult, it's like, no, you were duct taped. You're not using the bathroom on yourself because you have, because you just did, you're doing it because you have to, because an evil person or a mean person is not letting you up to do this. So my outlook on it's very different, but as a child I was very embarrassed about it, and I didn't want to let her know what was going on. I don't know when I lost my virginity. I don't know who it was with. As far as I can remember, I've always known what sex was, what it looked like, what it felt like. The first time I smoked pot, I wasn't in school yet. I was young enough to still be at home. My dad was at the front door smoking a joint, and I could smell it. I asked him what it was. It smelled familiar, but I really didn't know what it was because I know they had told me it was cigarettes before, but I knew the difference between cigarette and what he was doing. So I asked him, and he told me that he said if I want, or he asked me if I wanted some. He didn't tell me what it was, and I, from time to time, he would like let me hit his cigarettes and stuff. Before the age of 7, I was subject, or I was able to have a pack a week, and that was it. If I smoked more than that, then that was my fault. I didn't have any. So it was a completely different lifestyle than what I try to give my children. Um, but he let me take a couple hits from it, and then he asked me if I could feel anything. And I was just like, yeah, I guess. And I really didn't feel much. But then he was talking about how we were smoking marijuana, and that if I was ever to tell anyone, I would go to jail. And I could never tell anybody that he had it or he did it because I had done it and I was just as guilty as he was. And a lot of times, he would do this stuff to us where it was just like, oh, well, what are you doing? And it's just like, oh, you want to have this? You want to partake in this? And then it was just like, oh, these are the consequences that follow if you ever say anything. So, and he told us that, they would take us to jail, and jail, as he described it to us, was a place where they torture and beat you till you die. So, and they fed you lima beans, which lima beans disgust me. I don't know why. Maybe one day I'll get to the point where I can eat them, but as far as right now, lima beans just completely disgust me. So he said that all I got to eat, all I would be able to eat is lima beans. They never feed you anything else. I just knew that jail wasn't a place I wanted to go because it seemed a lot worse than home. When I turned 7, I knew that things were about to change. I knew that I needed to grow up fast. And that year, I learned how to cook. I learned how to wash dishes. I learned how to clean the house. I learned how to cut the grass, tend to the garden. Um, I listened in on adult conversations for insight on how to survive. I didn't know how much longer my mother would be alive. He was kind of to the point of beating her every day. She was having trouble walking. She was having trouble just doing daily functions. They were in a car wreck, and it crippled her for a moment. And I'd heard him say several times that he had done it on purpose, and that if she pissed him off again or pissed him off enough, that he would just make sure that he completely ended her life. So I wanted to make sure that I could take care of my brother and I before she died. Um, Sorry, my throat is getting dry. I kind of started meddling with this plan in my head on how I was going to kill my dad before he could kill us. The only thing was, is I would get so scared that he would wake up. Like, I would get to the point of getting the gun cabinet key out of his pocket. I would open up the cabinet, and then he would like twitch or move around in bed or something, and it would just scare me. And it's just like, oh crap, if he catches me right now, like, he's gonna kill me, and then I'm dead. And I didn't kill him, and my brother and my mom are still in danger. So I never actually killed him. um, Let me see where I'm at on this. Oh, we had no friends due to the isolation from everyone. We didn't feel like anyone wanted us, anyone cared about us. It affected my spoken grammar. Sometimes I know the words to respond to simple conversation, A lot of the times I would respond incorrectly in public settings. I was asked a question a lot of times. I wouldn't understand the words. Um, they all sounded like big noises instead of separate words. I would go along with whatever was said, so I didn't make anyone mad or possibly get beaten. I had already had a lot of dreams of terrors that were about to take place. I knew that I was going to have to be the one to save us. I would often stare at my dad, trying to see the bad in him. He would get so irate whenever I would stare him in the eyes. And I don't know what I looked like whenever I was trying to look for this, like, because my grandmother said that he had evil inside of him. And I'd also heard a lot of times that the eyes are the gateway to the soul. So I was trying to see in his eyes to see if I could see this evil. And it would just irritate him to no end. Um, Sometime before I was school age, my parents got into a fight. I remember this one distinctively. My dad had pushed my mom up against a refrigerator, and she had on flip flops. And her flip flops kept slipping, and she kept falling. And he would just keep hitting her and hitting her. And he said that the reason why he wouldn't stop hitting her is because she wouldn't stand up correctly so that he could give her a proper beating like she deserved. And whenever stuff like this would take place, I would go hide my brother and then come back and make sure that my mom was going to still be alive to take care of us after it was over. So I remember her saying, "Well, if you would let me stand back up, you could hit me some more." And he allowed her to stand up and proceeded to hit her more. I wondered why she didn't just grab a knife and stab him. I wondered why she kept letting him treat her like that. Um, I wondered why she made it easier for him to hit her, because it almost was like she was giving him permission at that point to hit her. And I wondered why, like, it was going to have to be me to stand up to him and not somebody else, because I didn't feel strong enough. I was a kid. I wanted him to love me, and I wanted his approval so much that I agreed to do some of the most unspeakable things you could think of. Um, there were times my mom would try to leave, but my dad would grab one of us, knowing that she wouldn't leave with both of us, because I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, your mom should have tried to get out of it." She did several times. I remember her going to our family members, and they were just like, "Oh, well, we just don't want that drama here." She went to a group home, and they told her that they thought that he had changed, that it was probably safe for us to return, and that it's good to keep the family together, that it would affect us worse. It would affect us in a worse way if they had separated. And whenever she would try to leave, I could almost read her body language, like, okay, she's about to try to leave him. We need to hurry up and run to the car. I was pretty fast as a kid. My brother, he was a little bit heavier set and slower. I don't think he really picked up on the cues and stuff that was going on. So he would usually be the one called by my dad, and he would be the reason why we didn't leave that night. Um, in the shelter, the lady mistaken us asking about our dad. I don't know. I can't speak for the reason why my brother asked about him, but I wanted to know where he was. I wanted to know if he was coming to get us. I wanted to know if we were going to be able to go back home. Not because I wanted to be back with him. It was because I wanted to make sure we were going to be okay. And I wanted to know if I was ever going to get any of my stuff from home. There wasn't much, but the little things that I had that I was attached to, I was very attached to. So after, my brother and I asking those kind of questions about our dad, my mom had talked to him a couple times on the phone with the lady saying, hey, maybe he's changed, you actually leaving him, that might have awoken him, and he sounds like he's really sorry and being really sincere. So my mom went back For a little while, things were pretty peaceful. When I was in kindergarten, I started showing OCD tendencies. Toys would have to be stored certain ways before I would accept that the play area was clean. Things on my desk would have to be arranged in certain ways. If anything was to come between me or what I was doing, I would become violent. Um, I knew I stayed in trouble a lot, but I really didn't understand why. It wasn't that I was trying to be mean to the other children, it was that I felt like I was their protector, like I was my mom and my brother's protector. It always pleased my mom when I helped her, so I was trying to do that for my teachers because I liked my teachers. They seemed like nice people, but for some reason it always made them mad and I didn't understand. Um, I would always like make my brother do what he was supposed to do. I would cook for my mom sometimes and I would help her clean up the house or try to clean it up the best I could by myself. At home, I would become very upset if things were moved out of place. My dad caught on to this very quickly, and he would taunt me by taking things or forcing me to accept their new places. My life was so out of control that I felt the need to desperately control something. I figured out I could put an item somewhere, and whenever I put it there, it couldn't move, it would stay. So I had control over it. And this really hurt me later in life as an adult because I'm in relationships and I have children who constantly move and I have no control. And the smaller they are, especially as infants, you can place them somewhere and they're there. And whenever you pick them up and move them somewhere else, you still have all the control. They're safe. Nothing's going to harm them. That they're okay. And whenever that control started being taken away from me, I just didn't know what to do at all. When I turned 7, I had hid out. I had hid outside. We lived in a trailer, and I had prayed to God to save me. I told him that I didn't want to go to hell, that I wanted to go to heaven, and I'd had a very graphic dream of hell. And now that I'm older, I don't really feel that there is a hell. I feel that my hell is here, my heaven is here. It is what I make it. And remembering that dream, I can see now how that dream connects so much with everything around me. But there was a lot of talk about hell. And around this time, that was whenever my dad was saying that for a little bit, he would be the Antichrist. The next minute, he would be Christ reborn again to help humanity because they have strayed so far away, and he is their advocate and all this, and he's just being misunderstood and mistaken for a bad guy when in reality he's just here to help. So that was some crazy times. Um, I remember going to church a lot with my aunt. She would come get us on Sundays. And the only reason why I liked to go to church was because that was the only time I was ever given candy. There was a couple times whenever we would be in the stores, unless we were able to find a piece on the floor and quickly put it in our mouths without anyone finding out, we got no candy. And it is very hard growing up as a child and never getting to experience candy. That is crazy. But and while my mom was shopping, we would go over to people in the grocery store and ask them if we could have a quarter so that we could put it in a candy machine to get candy. And as long as my dad wasn't there, my mom really didn't say anything. I think she understood children need a little bit of candy. But as far as my dad, one time we were at Kroger and it was right whenever they had opened. And at the checkout, they gave us a sucker. They gave my brother and I both a sucker. And I looked at my dad before I got the sucker because she was handing it to us and he smiled at me. So I thought that was okay to eat it. So I was like, oh, I'm unwrapping this right now and I'm going to start partaking in this because if he does take it away, at least I got a little bit. Whenever we got back to the car, though, he took it away from me and he said he was telling me about the beating I was going to get whenever we got back home. For the whole car ride, I pretended to be asleep so that maybe he would forget about what he wanted to do to me whenever we got home. But this time, pretending to be asleep, I actually fell asleep, and he woke me up, and he had a gun cabinet. It had a bunch of guns in it, but he had a shoulder strap for one of his guns that had metal clips on the end of it. And that was whenever we were in like really really bad trouble. That was what he would punish us with. So I don't know if it was worth this piece of a sucker I got to eat, but that sucker was the best sucker I've ever had in my life. I'm gonna end this video now because it's over 25 minutes, and we will talk a little bit more later about whenever my dad really started having some issues with the school and stuff, and how DFCS and the counselor in the school started getting involved in our lives.